Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel.
Today, I really wanted to demonstrate the small things that I do in order for a composition or a beat that I'm working on to not feel as robotic and stale. Because that is, in my mind, probably what I hear the most in beginner producers or people who haven't been producing for quite so many years yet, that they're more often their music will sound decent, but it often feels like it feels very rigid and static and robotic. And for my own sake, I mean, I spent a lot of time trying to figure out what is it that I can do for the grooves in all the various patterns that I have going on. How can I make them feel like they're kind of like dancing together? And what I've come to realize is that there's not a single one thing you can do, but there's a lot of small timing adjustments that when you add them up, most likely it will give you the kind of groove that you're after. So to demonstrate, I have taken a project that I'm working on currently. It's unfinished, obviously. I haven't arranged zilts, anything. It's just in the idea stage and the sketch stage. So we can take a listen to how this sounds in its current state. Okay. So, in my ears, this is a really good starting point, but there's still lots of small changes that we can do in order for us to inject a bit more groove and into this, especially with the hi-hat. I mean, because this is... I haven't done anything. This is basically just a placeholder. And the same with the pattern for the bass. I haven't really done any timing changes to the MIDI. I just simply exported the MIDI from Stepic, which is a really good step sequencer that I recommend. It costs a bit, but it's definitely worth it because you have, yeah, it has a lot of really neat functions that we're not going to get into right now. But I've just went ahead and exported that MIDI into a clip, 5/16 notes. My kick is a simple 4 to the floor, and I'm using Punchbox by D16. I've come to find makes incredibly nice sounding kicks once you tweak it a bit. Other than that, I have this simple stab in going on in wavetable. And again, we're not going to get into the the sound design part of this because it is pretty... It can seem pretty intense, but it's not that complicated, to be honest. It's just... A lot of this has just been like me testing out different effects and then EQing accordingly to what happens to make it fit more. But anyways, the first thing I would do is probably go and work with the hi-hat, because that is... It's the most important element that, together with the kick and bass, will define the main groove in my ears, at least as far as I've come with this composition here. So you can already tell that it isn't completely dry. This here, for anyone interested, is just a saturation unit. This is, yeah, it's fine, you know, it's nothing special. So the first thing I've done is I've try and work with a bit of reverb. I've come to find that using hybrid reverb to place the hi-hat in a physical space helps. Gives it a bit more room, and it's playing with the reverb here a bit. we can play around with the pre-delay, but just stick it to 10 milliseconds, that's fine. See, this reverb, this simple reverb algorithm will help to inject a bit more groove into our hi-hat. But since we're not gonna, like, this sounds way a bit too swung for my taste for techno. But a bit like this, something like that. The second thing I've done is I'm using Valhalla Supermassive, which is a free plugin, believe it or not. Really, really good one, and I'm just using a tiny bit of this here, just 2.4% mix. You can hear what it does. Then we're just this in and of itself will help to like create some groove. Recommend not necessarily like going overboard with this. The second, like the main thing I would do for my hi-hats, if I want to inject some more groove into this, I'll take my clip, duplicate it up, like say, yeah, so we have a 2, or you can even go 4-bar loop if that's what you want, but let's just stick with the 2-bar loop for now. And then you can already see here, for those of you who know of this function, I've already loaded in a groove into the Ableton's groove pool. Now this is essentially timing information that has been collected from, in this case, the MPC 60 vintage sampler. And what's really cool about this, you go look for this in Ableton Live 12 or 11 Suite editions. You have all these varying degrees of swing that we can use for our MIDI. Now, what's really cool about this is that we can actually see what it's doing if we select the groove, then we hit this little arrow key over here. Then you'll see it. Hold up. Yes. And what it also does is it slightly shifts the MIDI notes for the hi-hats. And by the way, I'm pressing down on my mouse wheel for me to use the hand tool. But what this groove does, it introduces a bunch of like micro timing shifts that back here, so we haven't consolidated the groove to the clip. And be mindful that this is a very, very minute change. You can barely hear it if your ear isn't really trained for this, or you don't do this every day, like me. Without. Now with. You see? I mean, don't get me wrong, this is a really, really small change, but in the end, like I mentioned in the start, it is all of these really small changes that, when combined together, will add up and will make your track bounce. And then you can't really point at one specific thing that is making it do so. Another thing I'd recommend doing, and this is a tip I learned through a masterclass of an artist called D-Dan. Really, really amazing techno music producer from the States. Been a big fan of him for the longest time. And in that class, what he does is he is using an instance of the sampler instead of the simpler. And then what we need to do, let's go to the time to velocity. In essence, this is going to make it so that the velocity of the given note that's being struck will open, like the higher the velocity, the more decay time we're going to have on our volume envelope here. So just to take an example, See, and we can actually, let's dial down the volume, velocity to volume function a bit. So then you can hear that the hi-hat hits doesn't sound exactly the same. And this is the same kind of effect that we would get if we were to play, like if you have a drummer, that drummer isn't going to play every single hi-hat note or hi-hat strike at the exact same velocity exactly on the grid. So if we do that, and then we can gently, see, we can gently play with the randomize function of the velocity. And once I've selected all of them, and if I hit Command or Alt for Windows, then I will be able to adjust the velocity of all the notes, and it's going to be relative to each other depending on the value that was set before we selected all of them. Basically, I can take the average down or up as I want to, and I want it to be a bit up. And again, we're talking about very minute changes here. Say we want. Now, even if we, so let's say we want this as a one pattern, one, duplicate it. Let's make that's a bit more busy. Yeah. You just go like that for a case of example. And all of a sudden you have what sounds like as a much more humanly played 909 hi-hat, even though the 909 is a drum machine, which, yeah, it's hard to get it sounding naturally without tweaking it like this. And on top of that, I would recommend you to, we can open up the, we can't really see it here, hold up, let's see. You go in the far bottom right corner and open up these track options. You do so. We can also adjust the global track delay, which is seen here in milliseconds, or like samples if you want to be weird. But now if we then and say I want the hi-hats, I want to nudge the hi-hats forward with 1 millisecond just to give them a bit of a rushed feeling potentially, or actually let's do a negative one because I want it to be a bit more laid back. I want this synthesizer wavetable stab that I've got going here to be the brushed one.